So we're almost finishing the mashing process. So the mash was at about 66 degrees. And for the last 10 minutes, we want to actually raise the temperature to about 77, if I remember correctly. Yeah, about 77. And that is called mash out. If you want to raise this temperature a tiny bit. And then also we have the water for sparging, which is, yes, at correct temperature. The thing with this is, with this part, you want to do it for an hour or more. Basically, during this process, you want to extract convert all the sugars. So if you can do it like shorter than an hour, but then you're not sure that you converted all the sugars. So what you can actually do, you can take you can basically get a special kit to test it, or I believe it's iodine, where iodine will react with sugars. So what you can do is take a bit of the wort, add a bit of iodine on like a separate container or something, and then you will see if it reacts. It means there's still some starch, so this process isn't done. Usually, if you do it for an hour at the correct temperature, that should be enough, unless you have like very dense grains, or like basically a lot of it, then maybe you need more. But usually that part of process is just an hour. So if you would do it for longer than an hour, nothing would change much if you of course keep the temperature, because basically once you converted all the sugars, well, there's nothing else to be done. Like, you cannot convert them anymore. So this process has to be should be about an hour. Can be more. Nothing bad will happen if it's more. Actually, yeah, we have about like 2-3 minutes left in that, and yeah. So basically, with this, the next part will be sparging, and the idea of sparging is basically you isolate the wort from this container, and you put it on a strainer, and then you pour the hot liquor on top of that. So for that, I need to clean quickly my strainer over here. And also, I did kind of notice that I do not have enough pots in here, so we'll fix that in a second. I need a additionary one. So yeah, usually, with this case, it's a 1 gallon. So the beer in the end is going to be about 3.8 liters. The amount of the water necessary was about 6.2 liters. With the grains, like in this kind of size, it should be enough to have about kind of 15 liter pot, maybe more. It really depends, because if you want to do more, of course you need more space. But in many cases, at home you might not have such big containers, and you don't want to like split it between a couple of them. So I would recommend just a trip to, well, a place that sells home equipment, and just getting additional containers so you have everything that you need. In this case, I do have those two big ones, and I will use additional pot, the biggest one that I have, to separate the wort from the grains, and then we can start the sparging. Okay, I can see that the timer is done. Okay, here we have another container. You can just also quickly check the temperature. If the temperature for mashing out is as we want it, so around the 77 degrees. Yeah, it's good enough. So basically we're able to start the sparging process. Okay, all the temperatures are correct. So what happens now is that we take the strainer, and yeah, we want to separate all of the grains from the wort. And to do that, you're probably gonna use a ladle in the beginning, and it will be a bit more tricky with the current setup over here. Okay. Nope. Okay. Okay. You might actually hear the cat that is demanding a bit of attention. That is not part of the brewing process, but it can be if you want to. Okay. Just only getting there. And actually at that point where we have more of a kind of spread out grains and it's not as heavy, because remember, we're dealing with very hot liquids in here, so you don't want to lift a very heavy pot with hot water, as this is dangerous. So if you leave it just for the end, that might be a bit safer. It's a bit splashy in here. Okay. I want to rearrange this tiny bit. Make it easier to add more. Okie doke. One more swoop here. And okay. Okay, so now we have all the grains separated. We're gonna let them dry a bit, and in the meantime, clean this pot because we are going to need it. The pot that they have there has only about 2.5 liters, if I remember correctly, so that will not fit everything that we need, the whole beer. So we need to reuse this one for the next stage, which is going to be sparging and boiling. And generally, as a rule of thumb, cleaning right after you use something goes a long way, because again, we're dealing with hot equipment and also hot ingredients, so they're gonna just dry out, stick like hell, and it's gonna be really hard to clean it. And as I mentioned, 90% of brewing is cleaning, and that's basically kind of the first part of where you get that this is actually true. It was not a joke about all the cleaning. So okay, now we have the other container, other pot, and what we can do is move the grains there, up, and it's going to start dripping into the other pot now. So now I can actually spread out the grains a bit more, because what we're going to do first, we're going to do something called recirculation, which is basically, well, pour the wort over the grains again. So let us take. You can actually going to see the color of the wort in this case. This beer is actually quite bright. It's not really a dark beer. It is a pale ale, so it's supposed to be quite, well, pale. And you want to evenly spread out the wort over the grains. And just in case there are any issues or problems, I don't want to have you listen to like echoes or any other problems for prolonged time again. So I will try to make sure that everything is fine, and hopefully it is. But let us see. Yep. Looks like everything works, so that's good. And I shall continue recirculating the wort, and it's going over the grains. You don't want to like have a pool of water of wort here. You can just patiently wait for the whole thing to go down. And also because what we're going to do is going to add more water into this container, and then after that we're going to bring this boil to this pot to a boil. And it's big, so it's going to take a while. So actually what we can do, we can turn on the heater on this one to slowly start to warm up the wort that already ended up on the bottom. So I turn on the heater, and again continue pouring the wort all over the bed here. as you can see, I'm using like ladles and pots and all the kind of equipment that you use in a regular kitchen, because like I mentioned, like brewing is kind of like cooking. So if anyone ever wonders like how hard is it to make a beer, well, if you're able to follow a basic cooking recipe, you should be fine to make most of the beers. It's not really that elaborate. The only thing, like I mentioned, you have to be consistent. You have to pay attention to this. You cannot leave it. You do have to check on the temperature and time, things like that. But again, if you're able to follow instructions, all the recipes are basically that, a list of steps that you should follow, and yeah, if you just follow them letter by letter, you'll have yourself a nice beer. I can hear it. I guess there is a bit of water on the bottom of the pot, but yeah, let us just double check the temperature of the sparging water. Nice mix. And what is the temperature? Okay. Yeah, 75. Didn't go down much. So yeah, with this, also there's some things they prepared while we were away. Well, I guess I was away. One of the things was I weighted all the hops. And if anyone didn't see how hops look like, in this case they're in form of pellets. So they're kind of, yeah, those green pellets that smell amazing, I must admit. So they're ready to be added to the boil once that is ready. Nope, not that one. That one. And yeah, okay, let's continue recirculating. Okay, so basically, given that there are holes all around the strainer, you don't want to pour on the side where it just basically just drips straight down. You try to kind of pour the wort on top of the grain bed, so it actually goes through the grains to the bottom of the pot. And yeah. In this case, like we're starting to get to an actual beer, like slowly but steady. And yep, let me just check if there are any kind of questions or something, because again, if anyone has anything to ask, go ahead, type it in chat. I should be able to see it, although for some reason Restream.io did not work that well with Facebook comments. They didn't show up, so that's no bueno. But I keep checking on Facebook as well, so I should be able to see if anything is wrong. Okay, so the recirculation is done. We're not going to need that pot anymore. And yeah, we can actually wait a tiny bit till everything goes down to the pot. And yeah, we have the sparge. Okay, so now kind of like mentally preparing for the next step, next step kind of, which is the boiling. the recipes, how they usually go, they mention the boil takes like 30 minutes or 90 minutes, really like depends. Most cases it's 30 minutes. And each of the ingredients basically say at what time left you're supposed to add it. So for example, in this case, we have to add 2 grams of Cascade hops in the 16th minute, which means the moment it starts boiling, when we start the timer, we add the 2 grams. Then the next addition is at 20 minutes, which means 20 minutes. I know it's kind of confusing, but it's like 20 minutes left. So 40 minutes in. Then we add the Irish moss. Then at the 10-minute mark, we add the grapefruit peel, grapefruit juice, and the 1 gram of Cascade. And then basically every minute we add a gram of Cascade till it's done. And when it's done, we're adding 8 grams of Cascade. So what it does, basically the longer you boil a hop, it will give you different tastes and flavors. So basically, if you boil the hop for longer, it will give you more bitterness. But if it's for a very short time, it will just give you the aroma. So this is where we're adding the additional 8 grams. So basically, we first, over the last 10 minutes, like we first have the 2 grams in the beginning. So that's what is going to give us the bitterness, but not much of it. 2 grams, that's not a lot. And then we're adding in the last 10 minutes most of the hops, and then a lot of the hops at the end. So with this, we should end up with a very hoppy, very fresh beer in the end. Okay, so recirculation is done. So what we can start doing is the stage that I call sparging, which is basically pouring the hot 77 degrees water on top of the grains. So with this, we basically want to extract anything that is left, any kind of sugars that stayed between the grains or somewhere lodged in there. We basically want to get all of them out so we have the highest efficiency, because out of the same weight, depending on your efficiency, how much sugars can you extract, basically you can make more or less beer. That like kind of depends on that. So what you want to do is to be able to extract everything. So this is why you do the circulation. This is why you do mashing out. This is why you do the sparging, to kind of just squeeze out all the sugars out of the grains that you have, because after that you will just dispose of the grains. There are actually many things that you can do with those grains. There are a bunch of recipes that you can use them as basically ingredients to cook with them. Or if you have like farm animals, it makes a great feed for them as well. So if anyone there watching has some piggies or chickens or whatever, you can feed them that. So very much a circular economy, and nothing gets wasted. So yes, given that, there's additional thing that we're going to add for the to the boil in the beginning, which is the lactose that we mentioned before. So first, I see that it's kind of sealed in here. They have scissors somewhere here. I didn't have them somewhere. Yes, they were here all along. So, okay, I can open this up. Okay. And now, need a container to measure the 100 grams of lactose. So we can start here. I can actually have it continue. We can basically, you can do, if you're able to do multiple tasks at once. I guess that this is why women make better brewers than men. Is doing multiple things at once, and while you're doing sparging, you can continue other stuff. So if you're comfortable enough with the whole process, you're able to basically just get better at it and be more efficient, and the whole brew will take less time. And that includes, you know, it will take more time if you're explaining everything, but once you're comfortable with what you're doing, you should be able to basically finish the whole thing quite quickly. Of course, it also like depends on the environment. So like I said, like now it's hot, so everything gets warm really quickly. But then the problem is we want to cool down the beer very quickly as well. So that is also challenging because, for example, my tap water right now is a bit warmer. So that's kind of hard if you want to cool something off. But for that purpose, I actually put a bit of, basically a couple of containers, Tupperware, with water into a fridge, into a freezer, to try to make it very cold, so then I can try to cool it off quicker. So those are the kind of caveats. That depends on how warm or cold is outside. There's going to be difference in how fast you can do your process. Okay, so we have our lactose, we have our hops. Over here, I cut a small piece, well, a quarter of the Irish moss. The whole tab is about 50 liters. So we definitely did not need the whole thing. This quarter, more or less, should be more than enough for what we need in here. Let's continue sparging over the part. Okay. And one thing, once we basically get everything in, we might need to measure the gravity. And what the gravity is? Well, have you ever wondered how do you know how much alcohol there is in a beer? Well, basically it's chemistry and like basic math. Like I mentioned, the sugars that we have in here in a beer basically make it denser in make the whole liquid dense. And this is what the hygrometer does. Basically, it shows you the density of a liquid. And once you make this measurement, then you basically take that beer, you put in a fermenter, and you let the yeast to eat the sugar and convert it into CO2, which is just going to go out to the hole, and into alcohol. And then you basically, after these are done, you can do the measurement again, and you will see how much sugar do you have left in a beer, and basically how dense is it. So then you can basically do math, and there are, of course, like there are online calculators. You don't actually have to do that math, but there are online calculators that you basically put the thing that's called the original gravity, which is the gravity after you boiled. So basically, when you put it into a fermenter, what was the gravity of the beer at that point? And then you put in the final gravity, which is the gravity once the yeast finish their job. And out of that, it will just tell you how much % of it became alcohol. So that's actually quite simple. But to kind of know if you're on track with your whole process, it's actually useful to measure this as well in the interior part, like in the parts in between. So for example, before the boiling, you can measure the gravity. So it's a pre-boil gravity. Then you boil it, then you measure it again, and then you actually see how much the gravity changed. Because again, with boiling, depends on very much on the environment. It might be hotter, it might be colder. You're going to lose some of the water from the evaporation. And generally, you want to keep keep being close to the recipe. You want to have as much exactly the same gravity as in a recipe. So with this, you're able to actually say like, okay, if the before boil your gravity is off, you know that the final gravity may also differ, or you might try to adjust the boil to equalize the difference. So to do that, do we have all of it? It's still dripping a bit. You can let it stay, and let's check the temperature. What is the temperature here? Okay, it's 80 something. Almost 90. I didn't want to bring it to a boil too soon because, like I said, you're going to lose liquid to evaporation. So if you can avoid it, it would be perfect to basically start the boil exactly after you're done with sparging, which is not always that achievable. But okay, we're at 90 something. But while we're here, I'm going to put this here just so I can put the grains thereafter. Still dripping? Still dripping a bit. I can actually see that it is dripping a bit. And that's the thing, all of it is beer. You don't want to throw it out, so let it stay there. And again, like I said, here's the hygrometer. And with this being said, we could actually get, like, before it boils that much, can actually take a bit of it, a bit more than that, and that's the pre-boil that we want to use for our measurement. Well, that's not nearly enough. We'll need a bit more. Okay. Yep. It is a boiling liquid, so I do not want to exactly get my fingers in there. I can cool it off because that's the additional thing that depending on the temperature, the gravity will also differ. So you might want to cool it off a tiny bit for the measurement. And yeah, again, there is a bunch of calculators on the internet that will help you with this. You can try to put it in and see. Okay, it reached the bottom, so we might actually need to add a bit more. Come on. Come on out. Okay. Kind of sounds like it would be about to boil, which is totally fine. We already have our sample here. We just want to catch the moment when it does. So we basically don't boil off too much. Okay. Up. Let's cool it off. Okay. Let us see how deep we'll go this time. Okay, so we're at, okay, there's a bit of foam in here, but I would say 1.0. Okay, actually the foam might be useful. 1.0. Three, maybe. Just check again. Yeah, let's say 1.03, and this is why a pen might be useful here. So we can actually say that pre-boil was 1.030, and like I said, that it depends on the temperature. The value will be different, but to fix that, basically take a thermometer, put it in, see the temperature, and then use the calculator to basically add the temperature so we know what's the stuff. Okay, so that's Celsius, so that is 40, 50, 51 degrees. At 51 degrees Celsius. I believe that already stopped dripping. If it does, it's probably just the steam that condensated. Okay, we can move it here. And like I mentioned, this is all beer. Going back into here. This is still hot a bit. Okay, it's not boiling yet. You can actually increase it a tiny bit more. And additional thing is that you don't want to lose too much beer, but also you don't want to keep the temperature too much. You do want to evaporate a bit of it. So it's usually kind of like halfway open is the best way. But for now we can wait because it's still not boiling yet. Can let it go and can actually move it out so it's not in the way. Okay, so while we're waiting to do that, again, cleaning everything. In here, not sure if that is actually visible. In here, I have a cleaning solution, which is called Sunstar. Well, actually a replacement for it. But what is important about this, it should kill everything that is not supposed to be in your beer. So it will kill any kind of bacteria or anything that would make it spoil, but it won't actually kill the yeast. So that is very, very useful. So the things that are supposed to be alive, keep being alive. But it is slightly corrosive material, so I would not suggest you to keep your equipment, like metallic equipment especially, too long in there. And also, when it comes to your hands, probably not the best idea to keep them there for too long. And if you do, immediately wash them with soap, or after a couple of days you might see your skin starting to like peel off or generally being unpleasant. So cleaning is important, but safety is even more. And right now I'm cleaning it, but it's totally fine that it might be slightly dirty because we're still operating with a hot beer. So it started to boil right now. So like the recipe called, we need to add the lactose. Actually, I washed the wrong spoon. I wanted to wash this one. Oh, this is fine. So, starts to foam a bit much to be honest. And yeah, throwing in the lactose, nicely stirring so it is definitely mixed in. And given that the boil already started, not sure if it has to be the highest setting. Start timer for 1 hour.
Okay, your timer is set for 1 hour.
My Irish Siri just set the timer to 1 hour. And additional thing that we're supposed to add here, we already added the lactose. So now what we need to add are 2 grams of the Cascade hops. So I'm going to take out about 2 grams. Oh, it doesn't this weight doesn't do negatives. Okay then, now let's do a different way. Let's start this and just do 2 grams. Come on. Okay, we have about 2 grams worth of hops, and let's add them to the beer. Add them, just mix them so they're actually getting mixed with everything else. And the pellets will basically crumble into leaves because the pellets are the hop leaves, but in a kind of a crushed form. Okay, we can place it here for now. It is boiling. It is boiling. Cover it again. Again, not too much, not too little. It's kind of a Goldilocks system over here. Okay, so what's gonna happen now? That's gonna take an hour. I will clean some things around, but basically from now on we have about 50 minutes till additional part when we start adding more things. So I think it's a good moment to pause this part of the stream for now, and I will join you in about half an hour, 40 minutes for the last part, which is going to be once we're going to add the last additions to the beer, and we're going to cool it off. We're going to transfer it to the fermenter, which is this here jug, cool it off, and basically prepare it to be stored and to ferment. So see you in about half an hour.